Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations and to pay my respects to their elders past and present. The First Nations peoples this continent were the world's first creative technologists and have been sharing stories and culture through play for tens of thousands of years and continue to do so today. I'd like to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. What you may have caught a curious glimpse of on your way in is Brent Watanabe's Deer Cam, a hacked version of the video game Grand Theft Auto 5, where the player character is replaced by a deer who automatically wanders around Los Santos. We thought it was the perfect introduction to our screening session, Video Games as Performance, curated by Marie Foulston. Marie is... I'm going to be reading directly from the page from this one because Marie's list of accolades is extensive. I first worked with her because she is the director of The Grannies and also commissioned Red Desert Render through Now Play This, the video work and the game showing in Out of Bounds, Exploring the Limits of Video Games, a current free exhibition in Gallery 3. She's able to join us thanks to the generous travel support of the British Council. Marie is also a leading curator and creative director of exhibitions, installations, and experiences that specialise in video games, play, and digital culture. Previously, she was curator of video games at the V&A, where she led the curation of the headline exhibition Videogames, was guest director of the experimental games festival Now Play This at Somerset House, and co-founded the UK alternative video game collective, The Wild Rumpus. Across her career, she has worked alongside a host of international organisations and leading cultural institutions, including the Smithsonian, the Game Developers Conference, London Film Festival, Penguin Random House, the Design Museum, Channel 4, ACMI, the Art Gallery of Ontario, and Mopop. Hope I'm saying that one right.
Like if the next sort of hour and a half is just you listing out organisations.
I warned you of this.
Like, see you cracks in the audience first.
I'm very happy to be hosting. I'm Jini. I'm a curator here at ACMI, and I worked with Marie on the Out of Bounds exhibition. Marie, I wondered if you'd like to say a few words introducing this screening and the kind of overall concept of players' performance.
Thank you. Yeah, and also if the mic levels are sort of wrong, then somebody at the back let me know if I need to move this a little bit closer. I'm assuming that's fine. But yeah, so thank you all obviously for coming along this evening for this. This is a really great sort of gratuitous opportunity for me to sort of you came of your own accord, into a room to sit and experience like a range of video game performances that I find sort of really inspiring and captivating. And for me, sort of as a curator, the thing that I'm really interested in is exploring this idea of video games as performance, as understanding that sort of no two people play the same video game the same way. And no one single person probably plays a video game the same way twice. Because you have all of these different factors and sort of variables that surround the way that we play video games, that it depends which sort of version of a game you're playing, what hardware you're playing on, what room you're playing in, what point in time you're playing with, and all of the experiences and the intentions of the person who is playing that game. And all of that means that sort of any singular concept that we have of a video game is a little bit of a fallacy, because actually what we have is almost this infinite set of possibilities of a whole variety of different performances. And for me, that just allows us to think about video games in this much broader context and to think about how all of those contributing factors, that the player, the environment, and the context, and all that intent has sort of that same equal weighting as the sort of software itself, which together, when those sort of forces combine, that we end up with performances. And so, yeah, this evening is a chance to sort of explore a range of interesting video game performances. To be clear, this is not a definitive canon of the greatest video game performances of all time, because we're watching these on a big screen. This skews towards contemporary works, because sadly, a lot of older works are just going to look a little bit grubby and pixelated on a screen this big, and so we won't be doing them justice. But I think we've got sort of quite an interesting sort of eclectic range of performances, and yeah, and so I hope that you all enjoy an opportunity to come sit in this big luxurious cinema and essentially watch YouTube videos while Jini and I have a little bit of a chit chat up front.
As Marie said, we'll be watching a series of creative video game performances across several categories, beginning with the category choreography. we'll be watching a video of Bloodborne, performed and written by Matt Leese and directed by Marie Foulston for the V&A. This video was one of a series installed in the V&A's Design, Play, Disrupt exhibition.
The archway you entered through is sealed by a wall of solid fog, leaving you with no choice but to fight or die. And this game will never grow tired of watching you die. This furious mess of fur and claws is the cleric beast, Bloodborne's first boss fight. A deadly combination of speed and strength that leaves you with nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, no room to take a moment to stop and just think. But if you're able here to keep your cool, to fight with calm patience, it's tough, but you can do this. All you really need to do is breathe. But it is difficult to breathe with a beast looming over you. And perhaps this just seems cruel. A fight with no shield to hide behind. A battle that demands of you so much precision. And yet when that precision can be found, it is glorious. You see, with calm and composure, this beast is easily fought. But it screeches and smashes and howls, and the music creeps beneath your skin and slowly raises your heartbeat's tempo. And if you're not careful, you start to lose that calm, that control. But you breathe, you take a moment to compose yourself and find the perfect moment to land that strike. And as the game does its very best to overwhelm you with anxious stress, the real cruelty of Bloodborne comes from its precision. Every button you press is an action set in stone. That dodge, that attack, once set in motion, cannot be cancelled. To make matters worse, the game has a memory. It will actively queue up the actions that you give it. Tap another button before the first maneuver you're doing has completed, and it will then carry out that action next, as soon as the thing you're currently doing has finished. The problem is, maybe you didn't really mean to press that button twice. Maybe you lost your cool for just a moment and pressed something without really thinking. Well, if you're lucky, a mistake like that won't kill you. Because what you see here isn't just a fight with a horrifying, hairy monster. It's a fight against the system entirely designed to panic, to stress, to tease you into making mistakes. part of the way that the game teases you into making mistakes is to encourage you to fight recklessly. If you're able to find a quiet moment, you can heal yourself with a stab of a blood vial. But there is a way you can heal yourself entirely for free, but with a catch. If you're harmed by the enemy, but instead of running away, ferociously attack the beast back in response, then every strike you land will slightly reduce the impact of the damage that you just received. So fighting with aggression might keep you alive, but it also might cloud your ability to find patience. But if you're able to find that balance, to find control in the midst of all that blood and chaos, an instant explosion of catharsis and joy. The reward that you've earned is relief. A moment to triumphantly punch the air, then all the space you could want to simply stop and breathe. Until, of course, you find the next beast.
I love that video for many reasons, not least being that was exactly, it almost exactly mimics my experience of fighting the cleric beast, which is that I so deeply couldn't get my head around it that I invited a friend over and got her to do it for me. No regrets. Loved the rest of Bloodborne. Not that one, though.
I'm sorry as well for starting everybody off in the deep end, because it's like I thought this would be the accessible way in, and I'm like, oh, it's a really stressful place to start. Just like, come in.
Well, maybe we can kind of talk about how and why, because, you know, we've been speaking, we sort of move during this conversation between speaking as curators versus me speaking to you as a video director. You're the director of this work. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how and why it came into being.
Yeah, so this was a installation that was part of the exhibition at the V&A, Video Games Design, Play, Disrupt. And for each of the, in the design section of that exhibition, we had a range of different games. And for some of the works, having them there playable was not going to be the best way for people to necessarily understand something or an aspect about them that we really wanted to communicate and convey. And one of the things that is sort of very well known about Bloodborne is that this is a brutally, brutally difficult game. And so I think to be able to step up to that game in a public space and to even sort of find it comprehensible, to have an experience with that is going to not be highly frustrating, but then actually could we convey that sense of difficulty to an audience coming in through that? And so we were looking for alternative ways of showcasing that. And so for a lot of the works in the exhibition, we did have sort of these video installations that were created. And this one was sort of inspired as well by the range of sort of YouTube tutorials that people will look towards for support when they're sort of trying to sort of fight the different beasts in Bloodborne. And so it was something that was sort of heavily inspired by that sort of critical part of the video game community, and sort of the way in which a lot of people engage with Bloodborne is that sort of creating and sharing these tutorials and how to sort of combat and take on the beast. So the installation was something that we worked with Matt Lees, and you might know Matt Lees. He's a YouTuber who is most sort of well known for, I think, his work with the Shut Up, Sit Down. No, Shut Up, Sit Down. Sit down, shut up. One of those way rounds. So he's sort of somebody who also comes from that space. So he is somebody who was creating a lot of the videos in the exhibition because we needed somebody who had the ability to perform and to choreograph the way that they were playing and performing. And so the thing that we were seeking to create with this was almost this sort of like, what's the general consensus amongst people about what it's like to play Bloodborne? And for us, it was, how do we communicate this sort of incredible intensity and this sense of overwhelming difficulty, and work with somebody who has the capacity to be able to play that game sort of at a competent level and be able to capture that footage in a way that really sort of communicated what we wanted to. And like, I mean, there's stuff that I can sort of jump into. Maybe I need to stop and let you sort of talk for a bit, because I'm like, God, I could just talk for hours about this.
And I would love that. I think we all would.
I don't know. Like, and it's like, okay, we'll sit here for like 60 hours. It'll be an endurance test. But, well, like, because it's like this idea about like, and for me, sort of one of the reasons for choosing this is about this idea of almost trying to blow apart this idea of authenticity of what a game is, that we all have this sort of consensus that Bloodborne is this one thing. And so in creating this, we were trying to play up to that, and we were trying to present this sense of consensus of what the game is. But when Matt was recording these videos, and it didn't happen so much with Bloodborne, but it did happen with The Last of Us when we were trying to record it, is that every time he was trying to record a playthrough, there'd be loads of glitches or weird things that would happen that just sort of broke the magic spell of playing the game, or of sort of experiencing the game. Like there was one thing when as he was playing it, that the character Ellie, they suddenly come across this dead body, and it's supposed to be this really emotional moment, but Ellie suddenly starts whistling this really jolly tune, and it's like, oh, if you're playing the game, you know that's what happens, but if you're watching it in a museum, you're like, wait, this is broken in some way. And so it was interesting that in trying to capture these authentic performances, we realized how actually we were trying to capture something that actually doesn't really exist.
I think another interesting thing about Bloodborne specifically as an example is that I think fans of From Software games have a reputation for being maybe a little bit too reverent towards the games themselves. That can, I think there's certainly a reputation for gatekeeping there, but there's actually a really, really huge online and video lore and guide and even just cinematic community. I know like Vati Vidya, who's actually Adelaide-based FromSoft creator, has started this series that is just cinematic. It's play, but it's edited series of play that are just cinematic and emotional scenes that he has constructed in Elden Ring. Do you think is that why, I suppose my question is, I really see how like the aesthetics of like specifically FromSoft lore videos kind of tie into this, like the slightly sort of monastic tone, that sense of reverence for design.
Yeah, totally. Like, because that was and that's sort of what Matt was playing up to, is that in that performance, it was like, okay, how do you capture that essence of this really gothic, sort of horrific and overwhelming space? And so we were sort of really playing, like, it's a very dramatic game. It's an over dramatic game like that. And so we were playing into that and sort of tying into that. But I think as well, the fact that Matt is somebody who is very used to being in that space as a YouTuber, is someone who's used to performing games publicly, that he was used to understanding like things like, okay, how do I orientate the camera? How do I make sure that I'm actually capturing something that looks comprehensive to an audience? So that actually does take a different awareness and skill than just sort of playing a game privately. And I think that's something that when we look at sort of YouTubers or Twitch players, that there's sometimes this sort of, I think we perhaps don't fully understand what it means to sort of not just perform for an audience like in your face and to host, but to also have an awareness of how you're playing a game for an audience to make it sort of comprehensive. And so I think there's something really interesting sort of for me in that. And I think, and it sort of, I don't know, it sort of leads on to this thought that, like in terms of the skill that it takes to do that, and I think it's really, actually, do you know what? I'm really interested to hear your experiences with performing Goose Game here for an audience, because again, when you're playing for an audience, like how did you adjust your play style? Like, were you playing Goose Game the way that you would play it at home, or were you playing it in a sort of like, look, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm showing you this, and we're going through these phases, and I'm going to do this bit this way?
I think I have maybe actually maybe not an atypical experience here, though I guess, you know, performing Untitled Goose Game with Orchestra Victoria is fundamentally a pretty atypical thing to do. But my experience of playing Goose Game had always been a slightly performative one, because I have brothers who are 11 years younger than me. And so I played it with, they played it with me to make me laugh, and I played it with them to make them laugh. So that's kind of how we'd played the whole game. That had been like my primary experience of the game, playing it as a kind of as a medium for in-jokes rather than as an attempt to like
sort of slapstick generated. But like I think that's a really interesting thing. It was a point I wanted to make at the beginning actually, was that there's this sort of fallacy that because video games are interactive, that there's this fallacy that people have that because the works that are interactive, that the definitive way that you have to experience them is by playing them and interacting with them. But I don't think that is true, because it's like actually that interactivity, as I said at the beginning, is what gives way to all of these different types of performance. And performances have audiences and they can be spectated. And that spectated experience is not lesser than or more than playing a video game, but it is equal to, and it's just different. It's just different. And I think it's something that we forget about the fact, sometimes it's forgotten about the history of video games, is that spectatorship has always been there, from like starting in the arcade, moving into the living room. Like that's my first experiences of playing games, is playing with a family and sort of that communication and not having your hands on the controller, and then moving more contemporarily into sort of things like esports, or thinking about Twitch or thinking about YouTube. That it's like that sense of spectatorship has always been there, and those spectating audiences, they do have agency, and they are still experiencing the game. They are still part of that performance.
I think there's a real understanding in a lot of the like online YouTube kind of FromSoft community, that the fact that these games are, you know, so known for being challenging is exciting, because it's an exciting thing to be able to communicate to others who maybe haven't played it or don't want to engage physically or tactilely with the game. But the joy in making something very difficult look very easy through skill is a very thrilling thing.
Speaking of which.
Exactly. Our next category is skill, where we will be watching a Super Mario blind race performed for Games Done Quick. Games Done Quick is a speedrunning event that showcases players' skill in completing games in the fastest time possible, usually under a variety of constraints. But the players that we are about to watch aren't playing a regular Mario game. Marie, would you like to introduce Kaizo
I said
Mario?
I agreed that I would explain what Kaizo Mario is, and I'm like,
and I just said, "Yep, go for it."
And I did practice this. Yeah, the Kaizo Mario. If you're not familiar, that this is the type of Mario game that we're going to watch. Is not made by Nintendo. It's not officially licensed. That it is a product. Kaizo Mario is sort of like comes out of this sort of scene of ROM hacking and hacking sort of Mario games to create bespoke levels. And Kaizo Mario is specifically known for being sort of essentially just the most brutally difficult games or sort of levels. So the ability and the skill level that you have to be at to play these games is phenomenal. And I think when you watch people play them well, you kind of forget that a little bit. So what you're about to watch, if it looks easy, you think you could do it, then like go home by all means and have a go, and we'll see how far you get.
Race we got coming up, that we want to get this Mario block to be just a little bit longer. We want that Super Mario Brothers 3 all forts race. We got 4 of just the elite of the SMB3 community in Mitch Flower Power, Graham Boubert, the Hackstore, and Lasso, all ready to show off their talents. But it's at the end of this 7-round race right here, only going to be about an hour or so. Now we got to get to that $125,000 goal. With that, I don't know, what are we expecting to see today? We'll first talk about the runners for you guys. For representing the team One Line Men, we got Barbarous King up there. We got Grand Pooh Bear. Yeah, I'm about to say, Issa, Barbarous, yeah, I'll re-say his name. Get the hype up. We got Dode out there. And we got Noble Tofu. Again, all for the One Line Men.
Yeah, and for Lunar Magicians, we got Pangea Panga.
Pangea Panga, let's give it up.
Yep. The one and only Glitch Cat 7.
Glitch Cat.
Laser Belch.
Laser Belch, give it up.
And all the way from Australia, Just Cook.
Just Cook, y'all. Now, DQ, I know I got to talk with a few of the members of the community last night. I know you're kind of the mastermind. This is really a large community effort, but you're kind of the mastermind behind this whole thing. What format can we expect today from these runners?
Basically, it's going to be just a Kaizo shenanigans all out. It's going to be, you know, there's some potential for one-shots. There's some potential to struggle on some bits. There's definitely some places where it can play to different racers' strengths. I think we're going to see. I think we're definitely going to see some really good racing today.
I was about to say, I had the pleasure of getting to see a couple of these levels last night, and y'all can be ready for some crazy stuff. I'll just leave it at that. With that, let's kick it up to the front and see our runners. Woo! Eight incredibly talented blind racers here for you guys, ready to show off their skills. With that, we do have a specific order all these runners will go in. I don't want to blow anything else. You'll enjoy how we got this game. One Tile Men versus Lunar Magicians. Are we ready, runners? Audience, are we ready? With that, we're going to count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! All right, so here we got our world map. Again, this is a blind race. None of them have seen any of these levels before. And as you can see, shout outs to the community creating all this awesome sprite work. They're going to know who to swap it off to. If you're ever wondering who's up, it's whoever's portfolio is up in the top left corner.
Shout outs to Kaizo men who put that all together. That's amazing. Swaps out the player spray and the tile up in the corner.
Yeah. So again, first of 7 levels right here. Looks like both teams swapping off, getting an initial feel. When you go into a blind race, what's kind of the first thing you're looking for?
Basically, you're just like, you want to get some progress and you want to show your teammates what's up. Communication is key. If you die on an obstacle, make sure your teammates know, don't do that. Don't do what I just did, you know?
And one thing during these races, a lot of times you have one of your team members looking at the other player's screens in case they're making more progress than you, and so you can kind of use that to your advantage to help catch up.
Yeah, even when you're not necessarily holding the control yourself, constantly picking up on why was they not able to get it? Maybe you're watching the team across from you, seeing if they have a solution. Not that we condone screen sniping, everyone.
It's cheating, just like practicing.
All right, so both teams still working on that first screen. As you can see, this is not.
Glitch missing the troll.
Glitch dodging. The first one at screen 1.
All right, Glitch Cat. And taking
that's right. That was already above his pay grade. He got in there. Now to note, we will be getting checkpoints after every screen transition, so that's almost like a mini win, even though it's not completely finishing the level. That's now that section off the book.
And Barb getting trolled by the Barb's dinosaur. Perfect troll right there. That's one of those instances where if you were watching the other player's screen, you would have known.
Also, quick shouts to the level designer. This one, again, we have 7 original levels. All these levels have been worked on for months by the devs. And this one created by Chris G. So, again, shouts to all the devs for all the work.
Wait, these aren't levels that were in the original game?
That's, people thought it was only 96 exit, but as it turns out...
there's 7 more.
Miyamoto might have missed a little bit in the code, so...
Well, here they are.
Now, I'm not sure if I've ever seen...
Oh! Getting in there.
Dode, the first able to get them out of the first screen, tying them up.
One thing you may not have noticed on this, there's a custom music track on this. It's a remix of Do the Mario.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Thank you for.
So you actually hear every once in a while, Do the Mario.
If anyone didn't hear that, this is Do the Mario. It's the remix right here. I bet you there are at least a few people in the audience who know that dance.
There's some doing it right now. This part's pretty tricky. The the level does a pretty good job of setting you up and letting you know, like, with coins when to spin and things, which is, I think, we got that from the Mario Maker community, actually.
Yeah.
One of the good things that came out of there.
Some of the diversity and indicators, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, to talk a little bit more about the format we've got for you guys today, some of you might have seen some of our Mario Maker representations at GDQs in the past. This is a 7-round game that we're going to be going through, each level being a round. Each of them have a time limit of 10 minutes. If neither team have finished by the end of 10 minutes, we're going to move on to the next level. But if they're able to take a round, able to get to the end, that will win them I believe we're going on a 10-second head start going into the 7th and final level. So this will not be decided until the 7th level has been completed. Players, each team playing for a little bit of advantage going into that. Obviously, that can be countered out. Ooh, off its chin. Doge showing a little sweet chin music on that dinosaur right there. Unfortunately, couldn't get to his brother.
I believe he was going for a 1 cycle on that one, too.
Wow.
Normally in practice, I've seen their one go for, 2 cycle. So he could wait.
This second screen giving the players a lot of trouble right now.
Still plenty of time.
Oh!
There we go. Oh, no. Yeah, they're still not figuring that out just yet, but they'll get there.
I'll say that middle muncher giving them a lot of problems.
Yeah. There's always a lot going on in your head when you're doing these races.
Yeah.
You don't have the controller for long. You have about 10 seconds or so, and so by the time you get used to the controls again, you're dead.
That jump there, dying on there, that one, that glitch just did, that's a really hard jump. You have to tuck under and bob the Rex and let go of jump and then re-grab jump.
There. There it is. You should have known.
Extra frustrating on top of that because one tile men, someone's back there scouting right now saying, oh, watch out. There might be something stupid later.
Don't worry, Super Mario World.
Nothing stupid. Chris G, you made a great level for us today. Thank you. Now, Dode was the one who was able to get them through the first screen.
Can he do it again?
Off the chin.
Going for it.
Oh.
Does he know about the troll? He does.
Research.
Oh, and here's glitch.
On to screen 3.
Here's glitch.
And that is a win for one tile man.
And glitch right
after they figured it out.
Wow, what a close race.
I think we might have recruited a few more Games Done Quick fans.
Hey. But I could just it's just really nice even hearing in the room the same responses to that the live audience have there as well.
Totally. I mean, like Bloodborne or the FromSoft games, huge online community around speedrunning and around Kaizo Mario, but unlike the FromSoft games, Kaizo Mario isn't really a game that people tend to play on their own. Yeah. Despite the fact that it's kind of a really the centerpiece of a lot of ADQ streaming. I wonder if you could talk a bit about why that is.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting because there was a really good podcast series, the podcast series Eggplant, that they did a deep dive into Super Mario. And several of the episodes, they actually had Grand Pooh Bear, who is sort of a really big figure within sort of the Kaizo Mario and the sort of blind rate, that sort of scene. And they were talking about this, and I think I can't remember what the fact was, but it's something a bit like that, like when you look at the sort of the numbers on Twitch of the amount of people that watch Kaizo Mario videos versus the amount of people, I don't know where this metric came from, like in terms of playing or downloading the game, it is, I think he said it's the only game, or it's at least one of the only games, that has a ratio where sort of the viewership and spectatorship and videos is far higher than actually people playing the game. And so you have this really interesting sort of concept here about like, what does it mean to create a video game that actually is for public distribution, but predominantly it's going to be experienced as a spectator sport or as a spectated medium, which I think is just, again, it's a really interesting provocation to force people to thinking like, is our experience in here lesser of Kaizo Mario than the people playing? And it's like, okay, maybe again, it's different, but it's still valid and it's still valuable.
Totally. I mean, I think my experience of Kaizo Mario would be significantly briefer than either of those speedruns. Before this panel, we were talking about the setup and kind of design of this video versus, I suppose, a typical esports stream, particularly around the role of commentary and hype.
Because, of course, when we're talking about performance and we're talking about games, that sport is obviously a very specific analogy to make here. That there is sort of an idea that you can play games very well, and there are ways that you could sort of compete and do well at that. But I didn't want to pick, the reason why I didn't choose sort of a more traditional sort of esports video or tournament is that for me, a lot of the games that sort of skew towards that, say League of Legends or Dota, if you don't know how to play those games, actually the videos are a little bit incomprehensible for you to sort of pick up and follow what's going on. Whereas this race is incredibly legible. I'm assuming that there's perhaps sort of a couple of people in the room who haven't played perhaps that specific Mario, but you understand what's going on and just the repetition of watching the levels again and again. But as you say, it's also all of the sort of construct that goes around that experience. That what is really great about Games Done Quick is just how sort of supportive and understanding the commentators are, especially, I don't know their names, but the hype man in that video as well, just such a good job of G'ing up the audience, but also does a really good job of not doing a big info dump at the beginning about, look, you're watching something that's actually quite hard to unpack, but they do sort of drip feed that information to the audience about okay, this is a blind race, these players have not seen this level before, so they're playing it for the first time, and these levels were created by people in the community, and these sprites are sort of things that have been adapted by the community. And so you just have this really nice sort of commentary that sort of is really welcoming as well for people who don't know sort of what's happening. And yeah, I love the fact at the beginning that when you're watching it, if myself, the first time I watch it, I don't know the names and they're just shouting things out like Dode and Grand Pooh Bear, and you're like, if you just made these words up, but you're just pulling them out of a hat. But it's just nice that it's do you know what? I don't need to know, because the way you're talking about it just gives me enough context. And I think it's really important to think about sort of that construct and the skill and value it takes to sort of be commentators and to present in that way.
I think there's an obvious parallel to draw with sports commentary in general, but what it specifically reminded me of was Olympics commentary, where the Olympics is so understood as a general event, and I would say most viewers are not expecting to ever reach the level of performance that they're watching either on their screen or in person if you go to the Olympics. I imagine that's something people do.
And it's often less common sports. So one of my favourite ones to watch is the fencing, because fencing is so really specific and small that actually watching it on a TV, it's impenetrable. So they've really had to think of ways of integrating lights and integrating systems to make it really clear to the viewer what's going on. And so Games Done Quick, they have this understanding of sort of communicating and conveying legibility to an audience where it's okay, you're perhaps a bit more sort of familiar with football or basketball or baseball, but it's okay, well, here's fencing, we're going to take you along and explain the rules because we know you want to watch it, but we know that you probably don't really know what's going on.
Totally. And kind of also like the Olympics, I think we just witnessed our whole audience become experts over the course of a few. And it's part of the joy of watching.
There was a bit when I was watching that then where I was oh, do they actually pass this? And I'm I know that they definitely complete this, but when they get stuck in a rut for so long, but just that moment of catharsis that you have when you see them getting past something. And then I think it's even better when they just get past something and then they fail again, because it's just so exquisitely painful to watch. But
or, I mean, maybe this is bad things about my personality, but what I like is when you're anticipating a particular hurdle and then the person doesn't quite make it and you're oh, of course.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
We do have to move on at a bit of a rapid clip, but next we'll be looking at another form of live-streamed creative gameplay in Everest Pipkin's Breath of the World playthrough titled Travelling Swordsman. The category for this video is emergent forms of play. Marie, you wanted to say a few words about the travelling salesman.
I've got to explain what travelling
problem.
salesman is. Yeah, so travelling swordsman is obviously a play on the phrase travelling salesman, and that is sort of the theoretical problem of if you are a delivery person and you have all of these points on a map, how can you best plot a route between all of those points to make the most effective sort of journey between them without doubling back on yourself and without crossing over a path that you've previously done. And so what you're about to watch is a snippet from towards the end of Everest's attempt to traverse the entire map of Breath of the Wild. and doing so from the beginning of the game to the end point of the game. They're not necessarily completing necessarily trying to 100% complete the game, but they're trying to traverse this space without ever crossing over a line and without ever doubling back on themselves. And that is actually, it doesn't seem like that difficult a constraint, but this is a project that took them a heck of a long time and multiple repeated attempts. And so the bit that we're about to watch is just a small bit from not the very end of the successful attempt that they made, but it's the last tower that they were seeking to climb just before they took on the final sort of castle and sort of boss sequence. And yeah, so that's the context, and that's what's happening behind the scenes here.
Okay, I wonder if stealth is better or speed is better. Climbing, probably speed, but I don't know. There's probably no way they don't see me, to be honest. There are 3 guardians, I believe, around this tower. Again, I am under-practiced. I don't remember where they are. There's one. They're decayed. They can't run up to you, but there is a big one that patrols up and down this road. So the trick is going to be... They're not loaded in, I don't think. It's too far away. The trick is going to be making this flight at a time that totally active one isn't patrolling. And then climbing up. So this tower, you can see, has these platforms all the way around it in a spiral. There's a couple ways you could classically do this. One is you kill all the guardians, which it's not going to be me, I can tell you right now. Or you can just sort of hop from one to the other and let these little like platforms shield you from blasts. I can't spiral the tower because if I spiraled all the way around the tower, I couldn't leave. Which means that I'm just gonna have to pray. That's the story. Okay, just gonna check my notifications and then we're gonna jump. Oh god. Okay. Okay. You know what? Let's switch to my good weapons. Just in case none of this stuff is really gonna matter, but just in case I get in a firefight. Maybe toughness actually is the thing. Toughness up. Or speed. Toughness or speed. Maybe extra hearts is the thing. Okay. Okay, I see one. Let's see me. Yes, it does. Missed me. Oh god, oh god, oh god. Okay. Alright, so there's one. It's now active. There's another one back there. Oh, they've got keys. Great. Maybe they won't come after me. Okay, there's one right over here facing this. Oh god, that's the one on legs. That one's gotta leave. Because if this one spots me while I'm up it will be able to move around the tower and I won't be able to find shelter. If I stand up, okay, seem good. Oh, it's like right here. Oh, and there's, you can see the other one through the tower. There's its a little eye. Thank you everyone in the chat wishing me well. I really appreciate it. I need it, but I don't feel as bad as I could. I don't feel as bad as I could. I think I'm gonna make a bet on hasty, not stealth. I don't think there's any way they don't see me. And I think I don't want to get hit at all, because even if I survive it, I'm going to be at the bottom of the tower again, which, you know, I let myself have straight lines, but even so, it's like a little bit against what I desire in the stream. So we'll drink that. I'm going to put on climbing gear. And my strongest pants, a horrible outfit, and we're just gonna go. We're just gonna go. Okay. There's one. Okay. There's two. Shit. All right. Okay, I think my best bet is up this edge. Is there another? There's another one ahead of me? Yeah, okay. I hate this. My friends, my dear friends who have been with me through so much. I hate this. Which side? Okay, from here. Oh? Oh my god. Oh. Okay, I have a very thin margin. It's just up this weird little edge, and I'll have to drink a stamina potion. Or maybe not. Maybe I've got this. Actually, you know what? Why risk it? That's my littlest one, but not too little. That one looks good. Holy shit. Okay, all right. The tower's hard, or the castle's harder than that, but or the castle's more, it's like iffier than that. There's more stuff going on, but that's not an easy tower. And we hit it. Okay. All right. Our last tower, our last piece of map. Yeah. Okay, this feels good. My original win condition before when I thought maybe the castle wasn't even going to be an option, the fight isn't going to be an option with the constraints, but when I was like, maybe the tower itself isn't, that win condition was the complete map. So I feel like I've hit at least one of them. Look at us. We've been everywhere.
And they are really worth watching. Everest is an incredibly charming, I wanted to say host, but I suppose like performer is a more appropriate term. But one of the reasons I know you picked Traveling Swordsman was because it's such an interesting showcase of players as creative agents in video games. You know, we think of increasingly people understand that video games are made by people. They're the product of creative labor. But I think that this concept of the player as a kind of co-creator of a game experience is something a bit newer to a lot of people.
Yeah, that it's just sort of like, again, like the copy for the event says, like if a tree falls in the woods, or if a video game is left in the woods to be played, like, or whatever. If a game needs to be played to exist. And so, but also there is only a certain amount of control or guidance that a designer or a team can give to sort of ideally sort of encourage a certain type of behavior. And people like to be sort of silly, and they like to push the boundaries and try to do things differently. And I think projects like this sort of embrace that idea that it's this much more extreme example of the fact that whenever anybody is playing a game, that they are undertaking an act of co-creation with the designers, that they're responding to it. And that is sort of resulting again in this sort of performance. But what Everest is doing is pushing that to a much greater extreme, where the way that they are playing Breath of the Wild is not at all a way that the original designers intended, or perhaps could have even sort of speculated that anybody might play it. But they are then within that creating a different game. They're creating something new, and it's this emergent form of play that they are redefining the rules that they play by. And you can hear it in when they're talking, because one of the things that I should have said before this clip came on is that one of the reasons why it's really important that they didn't die, and that is because when they die, the route, when they were clicking back to the map, you can see the line that's being drawn, and that was the metric that they were using to say, like, okay, is my line doubling back? Is it looping back on itself? And so if they died, I think at that point in the run, because they traveled so far in the map, that wherever they would have respawned, it would have caused them to sort of cross back over, which is why there was such added tension, which you sadly weren't aware of when you were watching that. But
there's that really funny bit where they say, my friends who've been with me through so much, I hate this. And I wondered if we could talk a little bit about the fact that Everest's community is smaller than the ADQ community, and actually much more kind of involved in their stream, maybe in this case with a kind of close-knit, with like a close-knit online community like this. You might think of audience as a kind of co-creator as well. Yeah, that it's, I mean, there's obviously sort of like, there's a lot of parallels between this and sort of Games Done Quick Gone Before, because equally sort of Kaizo Mario and sort of ROM hacking Mario is again that sort of a form of emergent play, and Games Done Quick about speedrunning, that Everest is kind of creating some form of sort of speedrun within what they're undertaking, but equally that these are both performances that are being broadcast for an audience. With Games Done Quick, it's to this big online audience who are watching and spectating, that it is also a charity event, and it also has the live audience. But the audience that Everest has cultivated and is speaking to is a much smaller audience, and it's a community of friends, it's a community of peers, it's a community of people with sort of shared interests. And there is sort of that level of intimacy that they have in that space. And I think sometimes, again, it's this idea that a performance, when you put performances, or when you put content online, or you put it on Twitch or YouTube, that it only has value when it reaches like these really big audiences, because in theory it can reach the whole world. So why doesn't it reach the whole world? But there's something really nice about when you have those smaller communities, that you have that dynamic of seeing names in the chat that are familiar and being able to talk to each other and sort of sharing that experience. And there is that back and forth between Everest and the audience that they're speaking to. And so it does become this sort of, again, even the audience has this sort of collaborative and sort of this impactful sort of creative experience as part of that playthrough. And I think it's just really interesting to think about what it means to sort of perform for like just a small group of your peers and friends. Like, what other contexts would you like? I mean, maybe some people, but I'm not going to put on a theatre play or performance for my friends. But that's just, it's just such a really nice sort of emergent thing to sort of come out of the medium and the platforms. It's kind of funny that when we talk about things like this, Traveling Swordsman or the Grannies and Out of Bounds, we think of them as atypical ways to play games, as if that isn't like the essence of play. kind of making it up as you go.
Yeah,
And performing, I suppose, specifically for the people around you.
Yeah, and it's just, maybe, I don't know, if I'm like, video games can be a little bit of a naughty medium, like that it is playful, it can be sort of silly. And I like the fact that we have that scope to sort of embrace that. And then, I mean, it just goes to such extremes, and I won't go into that because I'm just going to start waffling if I'm talking about it, but...
Yeah, I think we spend a little bit too much time talking about video games as an art form and a little bit, not quite enough time talking about how bloody silly they are all the time, and how silly people are with them. But we do have to move on from this more kind of contemporary approach to emergent forms of play and back to a more typical fine art perspective on video game performance. The category is provocative. And we're going to watch Parallel 4 by Harun Farokhi. It's one of a series of 5 films where Farokhi participated in video game worlds in a way that was intended to reveal the uncanny, in this case as a way to reveal the odd behaviour of non-player characters.
The hero is thrown into his world. The hero has no parents and no teachers. He has to learn by himself which rules are valid. He approaches other people.
Per favore, stop!
Don't do that again, understand? Friend, you need help.
You don't understand. I have nothing.
You're a real asshole, you know that?
The hero who is exploring his world encounters here people who he can't push or bump into. He can't hit them, he can't shoot them. They are like twilight beings, something between a person and a prop. The camera eye slides by them as if they were protected by an invisible airbag.
You don't care who gets in your way, do you?
Back off. Out of my way.
Hey, watch it! Oh no, he's gonna kill us all! Oh fuck! Run!
Когда я была помоложе...
Nobody taught you how to fight?
This will not end well. You should stop this before someone gets hurt.
Help! I'm being attacked!
You should probably stay down.
You're in my personal space. You're in my way. Listen, Buster, back off.
Sweet Lord!
What are you doing? It's your choice. Live or die.
The sales lady has a short memory. As soon as she is outside the door, she forgets that the hero pointed a gun at her. She returns to the store, is threatened, and flees the store again.
What is this? I grew up in a war. This means nothing. Hey, it's an ugly city, my friend.
You want to scare an old woman, eh?
I have a very short fuse. Don't annoy me. Stay very calm. Don't be an idiot. What? It's just a gun.
If she is threatened, she must leave the store. When she is outside, she must return to the store again. This tragic constellation reveals to the hero the limitations of human freedom of action.
Slow down.
God help me.
Whoa.
¡Qué horrible!
Can I just say, very quickly, share one of my favorite examples of like weird NPC player interactions is Yakuza 3, a game where you play as a Yakuza and you spend a lot of time running around knocking people over in crowds. You're like automatically running. But occasionally in those crowds, there'll be enemy NPCs who want to fight you. And the only way to avoid their ire is to walk. You have to press a specific walk button. So you spend a lot of the game like absolutely like cutting swathes through crowds, leaving this wake of bodies behind you. And then you see like one mean boy and you're like suddenly very, very slow and calm. Marie, I know you have a personal relationship with this film that I think you wanted to talk about.
Like, I think, do you know what? I think as well, sort of watching it is that, just a comment as well, that I think because so much of the ways of the interactions within the games that are shown are obviously through sort of violence, it is actually a film that I do sometimes, because it's so extracted from the play experience, I think for me it does sort of really heighten that sort of visceral sense of violence. And so watching this, I do feel quite uncomfortable at times, watching sort of some of the violence be unpacked. But yeah, for me, sort of this was this whole series by Hiram Farocki, the Parallel series, was something that was really sort of impactful for me. That it was, I came across it first when it was exhibited at the Whitechapel Gallery in London, and it was around about probably 2015. It was in the early days when I was working at the V&A, and we were putting together the Videogames exhibition. And one of the big things that we wanted to make sure that we did with that work was that we didn't want the exhibition to necessarily be, as we termed it, like just an arcade in a museum. We wanted to find alternative ways of opening works up and thinking, what are the ways of doing that? And I have to say, sort of, when I went into the Whitechapel Gallery and I saw this work, it was, and the way they set it up, it was these sort of five sort of floating screens that were sort of in this sort of circular formation, and you sat in benches with these directional speakers above. And you could just ambiently move from one film to the next, and just sort of, one of them is about sort of boundaries in games, one of them is about NPCs, one of them is about sort of the evolution of graphics of certain materials in games. And it, for me, was this really amazing moment of stepping into a space where I was not playing a single video game. I was just watching these very, very provocative. And when I say provocative, I don't mean like, ooh, like it's so provocative. I mean that he's playing this very intentionally provocative style to elicit certain reactions and to show sort of, to reveal like sort of the underlying machinations of the game. And for me, it just, when I left that exhibition and I left that display, I realized that those 5 videos and my experience of being in there taught me so much more about video game materiality and about the design of video games and the culture of video games than any sort of exhibition that I'd stepped into that I could remember, where I'd been sort of asked to play a game, because you were just watching somebody open that space up. And I think there's a lot in this film that obviously you can, a lot in this series and in this game that you can see sort of is echoed in the Grannies as well as a work.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was about to ask you about, is sort of the resonance between this work and the multi-channel video work that we're showing currently, the grannies. Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about the process of making that work?
Yeah, well, just sort of the connection. And obviously, it's really great to have sort of, I can see multiple grandmothers in the audience, so it's really great to have you guys here. It was obviously sort of an experience of a group of friends who were playing Red Dead Redemption 2 or Red Dead Online, and playing in, not necessarily for a public, but playing for themselves. And again, this sort of quite provocative way of breaking out bounds of the video game. And the whole point of sort of, for me, sort of the thing that was really fascinating about what they did was because they understood games, because they understood visual art, because they were comfortable and confident, as they say in their own words, appreciating that beauty, that what that film does and what their journey did and what the images in their story that they told of that did, is that for me, it told me so much more about the materiality of the virtual world of Red Dead Redemption than I think that I'd had an ability to sort of grasp and sort of understand. And so it, for me, was really interesting to see that people playing in this very subversive way actually has the ability to open up for us and show us aspects of the materiality of the work. And so as you can see sort of in this film, that it's about the NPCs, and it's about sort of trying behaviors over and over and over and over and over and over and over again in a way that you would not normally do. And you just begin to see the sort of what we sort of perhaps take or allow ourselves to suspend our belief that, like, this person's acting like a human, that when it's put in this context and it's repeated over and over, you see the thinking, you see the limitations of the systems, you see the limitations of the game, you see the decisions and sort of perhaps sort of the decisions that the designers have had to make. And I think for me, that was what was really interesting about this work. And for me, that is sort of, again, that connection through to the grannies, that it's like, this tells you, this isn't just watching sort of someone acting weird and funny, this is telling you something about how that work was made, and it's showing you, it's revealing itself to you in a way that you wouldn't if you were just sort of playing it sort of in the way that it's perhaps sort of intended.
This is actually something, or at least it's touching on something that you wrote about for ACMI Online, about the relationship between magic and video games, and how sometimes a trick can be more thrilling and more impressive if you do know a little bit about how it's done.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about constraints, that it's just sort of there's the quote that I put in the article, which I have the love-hate relationship with, which is by one of the Hauser brothers. It's basically sort of saying, like, that the reason why the game Red Dead Redemption 2 was magical was because people didn't know how it was made, and it was made by elves. And for me, I disagree with it. Like, obviously, that's not to say that my opinion is right or somebody else's is wrong, but for me, I disagreed with it because I just thought, after witnessing what the grannies had done and the way that they played that game, and equally watching the way that Harun had played all of these different games, is that I appreciated those worlds so much more because I understood the constraints, I understood the processes. And when you begin to see that, I think you begin to see the scale of the work that has gone into something. And for me, that can be a really sort of enriching experience.
For our very final video, we have quite literally a performance. For the category literal, we will be watching We Are Such Stuff as Dreams Are Made On, performed by Sam Crane. This film was developed by actor terrible. This film was developed by actor Sam Crane during the COVID-19 lockdowns. Devoid of physical performance spaces, he began to explore his performance practice increasingly in digital spaces, including the public lobby in Grand Theft Auto. When this work originally came out, I think it got quite a lot of buzz for being sort of the first of its kind, but it's actually part of a lineage of similar performances.
And I think there's sort of the fact that this has helped sort of reach a broader audience. I think because of sort of Sam's position as sort of an actor, but also because of, I think, the point in time that we're in, that we're more sort of open to this idea of performance within games. And there's multiple different examples. And one of my favorite historical examples, it sounds so silly to say, is a TV show that used to be created in Halo, which was called This Spartan Life. And it was this talk show that was hosted, and they would have different creatives. They had sort of sometimes machinima creators, they sometimes had like directors or sort of people who worked in sci-fi or whatever, and they would bring them in and interview them, and they would be interviewed inside an active server. And so you have this sort of absurd clash of them sort of trying to hold quite a civil, sort of polite conversation whilst people are sort of running around them and trying to shoot people. And so it's for me sort of this really rich and interesting space. But the reason why obviously it's at the end is because if we're going to talk about video games and performance, let's end on the very literal definition of putting a performance into a video game. Like let's just go the whole way. But also, on a sort of personal note, it feels like a film for me that has almost been like a sort of buddy or a travel companion to the Grannies. And so the Grannies has traveled around a range of different film festivals over the past year. And when there's different programming strands, the thing that it tends to sort of be aligned with is this film. And so it's been really, it feels like sort of like a cousin of that film or like a good friend of the film. So I feel like this sort of kinship with it. But it's incredibly watchable. It's incredibly enjoyable, and I think it is the absolute perfect note for us to end on.
I think it's also, I completely agree. I think also the performances by other players who are not Sam Crane, who are just in GTA hanging out.
At the
there's
end,
one
so
at the end
good,
that really
yeah.
steals the show. All right, let's roll.
Don't shoot me. I'm in peace. Please don't shoot me. I'm just trying to do a performance. I'm trying to do a performance. Just a perform. Please don't shoot me. Not just okay. Please don't kill me again. I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises, and indeed it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave hanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire. Why, it appears nothing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapours. What a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. And yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me. You know, it's from Hamlet. I don't know. Did you like it or not?
And on that note, our revels now are ended here too. Yes, so draws to a close. Our night on video games and performance. Could you please give Marie a big hand for curating this evening? I'd also like to reiterate my thanks to the British Council for their generous support in getting Marie here. The UK is a long way away. If you're interested in performances play and seeing more of Marie's work, please check out Out of Bounds, Exploring the Limits of Video Games in Gallery 3, which is open during ACMI's regular gallery hours until 23rd of April. And thank you again so much for coming.
And thank you, Jini, for being a really good host. Thank you, as spectators, for being co-creators in this performance. And yeah, thanks for ACMI as well, giving me the opportunity to, as I say, just have a nice little evening here and watch some really nice YouTube videos together and have a bit of a chat. Wonderful.